here's the hearse at the Haunted Museum. What's going on, Unfazed crew? Welcome to beautiful, fabulous Las Vegas. Today we are at Zak Bagans Haunted Museum. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Zak Bagans, huge fan of Ghost Adventures, and I've been quite literally dying to come to the Haunted Museum for quite some time. Actually booked these tickets quite a long time ago, and we're gonna go inside and check it out. Unfortunately, the only part that sucks is we can't record inside. So what we're gonna do is Emmett and I are gonna go through. We're gonna give you like kind of a breakdown of what's inside afterwards, and we'll talk about it. So we'll see ya.
May have the power to control thoughts and emotions. We've tried to open the demic box before, and we weren't able to do that. Things were happening out of our control that I believe were trying to stop us from doing that. Thank you. Shoot the screen, shoot the screen. Thanks, Stuart. This is my tour guide, Virginia. Virginia's been with me for a long time. Over 2 years. She's never been affected like this.
What's up, guys? So we literally just got out of the haunted tour, and it was a lot of fun. And for a guy who is fairly skeptical, it was very cool, very interesting, and still very, very spooky. The house and the whole building is fairly large, and Ben and I were both talking about how it doesn't look that big from the outside, but it really just goes on and goes on and goes on. And I think they make a really good use of the space, because there's a lot of like sort of thin hallways that will lead you to another room and another room and another room. And each little exhibit is thematically very different from the last. So one will be about like a murder spree, one will be about a demonic object, and so they're all just very, very different. It never gets boring, and it's just very visually stimulating. It's packed with stuff. Every room is just packed with things that look authentically creepy or old, or they're just real. They're very creepy and real. There's a lot of like haunted mansions that you'd walk through. You get that sense of like cheapness and cheese, and that it's all just sort of like manufactured. But with this, everything feels very authentic, and that in itself makes it more creepy. And yeah, 10 out of 10, I'd definitely do it again. It was very informational and very sad at times, because a lot of what was talked about were like serious murders and just awful things. But then at the same time, there was a lot of more of that Oogie Boogie supernatural side. So it had something for everyone. Very cool vibe. Just great time overall. I think we both had a good time.
Absolutely fantastic. Above and beyond what I expected. I knew it was going to be cool, I knew it was going to be creepy, I knew it was going to be kind of depressing at times, but it was all that and more. I mean, it really exceeded my expectations. If you guys are in Vegas, 110% check it out. Not really for the faint of heart, or if you're super religious, I wouldn't recommend going through it. It might be a bit much for some people, but for me, I enjoyed it. I love this kind of stuff. I love the spooky stuff. I love the ghosts. And then also, like Emmett was saying, that murder aspect was kind of something I didn't expect. Like, we saw Charles Manson's ashes. I mean, like, stuff like that I never even thought about. Anyway, we're going to discuss it a little bit more. We're kind of by a noisy street right now, so I can't get too in-depth. But all I can say is 10 out of 10. Zak Bagans Museum. Really, really cool.
Hello!
Hi.
It is like just past, what, 10:30 or something?
Yeah.
And earlier today we were at the Haunted Museum.
Yeah.
Mr. Bagans, they call him Bagan.
Oh, Bagans. I always say Bagans.
Oh, I thought it was Bagan too, but
I say Bagans.
I noticed the workers called him Zak Bagan.
Yeah. I think
Ghost Adventures.
I think we should preface this by saying we woke up today and we started drinking at about 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Caesar's Palace. We went to Planet Hollywood. We went
Very
to
cool.
Cabo Wabo.
Very
We went
cool.
to the Stratosphere.
Very cool.
And of course, we went to Zak Bagans, Zak Bagans, Haunted Museum, and we had a great time. And so you have to forgive us; we're a little inebriated.
Yes.
But we're having a great time, as always. And you can't film inside Zak Bagans Museum, so we decided to kind of. We prefaced that at the beginning of the video.
We
but
filmed
decided,
we filmed as much as we could in the lobby, and then they literally confiscated our camera.
They confiscated the camera, yeah. So we couldn't get it back until the very end. We were in there for about a good solid 2 hours to maybe 2 hours and 15 minutes. We were in there for a while. And we saw a lot of cool stuff, but like I said, we couldn't document it. But so we decided, hey, what the heck, let's just talk about it and like make a little impromptu video where we tell you guys what we saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was cheers
To the ghosts.
to the ghosts.
Good times. We're let's see, we just polished off a bottle of Jack Daniels, and now we just polished off a bottle of Jaeger too.
Yeah.
So we have a problem, guys.
We're feeling well. You know, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This doesn't count for anything. That's what they say.
All right, let's talk about the ghosts.
All right, it was fucking cool, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was telling our buddy Alan earlier that the layout and the dim lighting and all the imagery and stuff was still kind of like your classic like cheesy haunted walk-through mansion, but at the same time it was just a little darker and obviously a lot more sort of deep and serious and gravitational because he had a lot of. I was surprised how many significant pieces of
it was the real deal, guys.
Yeah, like I know he had compiled a lot of shit, kind of like those who are those two people in the Conjuring series, the main two.
Oh, the Warrens.
The Warrens, yeah. I know the Warrens have like a room where they
Ed
have
and
all
Lorraine
their,
Warren.
Yeah, they have a room where they have all their demonic stuff, and this was kind of like his version of that. But and again, like I thought it was gonna be some Warren shit, like a creepy doll.
We're very washed out. We'll have to.
Yeah, we are washed
Let's see
out.
if we can edit it. If not, sorry, you're getting the fish belly special here, guys.
So yeah, I thought it was gonna be kind of like the Warrens, where it's just like a haunted watch and a haunted Annie, like Raggedy Ann doll.
Wasn't it way more in depth?
It was way more in depth. There was literally like the killer who they based the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all that stuff off of.
Ed Gein.
There was an actual piece of one of his victims' like torso flesh and like there was
nipple and all.
Yeah, there was legitimate shit in there, and it was very intense. And there was the skeletal remains of Charles Manson.
Yeah.
And
he'd been cremated, but there were still bits of his bones.
Yeah, it was like partially cremated. There were like some flecks and pieces of bone among the ash or the dust, and it was very surreal.
It was hardcore.
Yeah, like looking at it, like I think as you said, like looking at it, it's like the full impact doesn't even hit you. You're
Not
like,
at all.
It's just like some.
You see it. Someone's telling you a story. You're hearing narration essentially, and they're like, "Yo, this is Charles Manson's remains. Here's his toe tag from when he was deceased. Here are what was his name? Richard Ramirez's clothes from his trial.
Ted Bundy's clothes.
Clothes. The ice pick that he used. The knife that other killers
like murder
used.
weapons. Yeah.
Like hardcore murder weapons and ropes and all this different stuff, and you're just like, okay, because it doesn't quite register. You take it in, you feel weird, but at the same time, like the impact of it doesn't really hit while you're looking at it because you don't know the whole backstory. Right. You hear the backstory, but it doesn't quite register. Yeah,
it's almost like even as we're talking to it now, it's like wow, we just like saw that shit. We were like inches away from that shit.
Yeah, like we saw Charles Manson's remains. We saw literally flesh from Ed Gein, and we saw his cauldron that he would boil people's flesh in.
And then there was I remember watching this from some video on YouTube years ago, so I kind of knew about the murders. I forget the guy's name, but there was some guy who took like male prostitutes and would kidnap them and torture them with like electrical equipment.
Yeah, he was James Polovich.
Yeah.
Love you, James. Love you, James.
Yeah, that one was really sad. That one was incredibly sad. Yeah. And he would take pictures, kind of like there was another murderer who did the same thing with female prostitutes, and I think just women in general. He would take like lots of pictures of them before they died. He would have them pose, and there's some very chilling images of them, like they're like scared and shit, but you can kind of tell.
What's his name? The guy with the ski mask.
Yeah,
the one that all the girls like. What's his name?
Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Dude, Ted Bundy. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, yeah.
But they had some of those Polaroids. They had, like, literally, did you see in that case? They had the Polaroids. They had the ice pick.
They had the negatives of all of the pictures he had taken.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
They had his ski mask. They had his glasses. And there's something about looking directly into it because they had it at about eye level for most people. And it was his ski mask. And there was something looking into it that was just so confrontational where I looked at it and it, like, literally gave me chills. I was like, wow, this fucker caused so much destruction in his time. And here it like, you know, this is what he wore.
Yeah.
This is what a lot of people saw in their last moments, you know?
The concrete, like, murder stuff was almost, they were almost, like, nonchalant about it. They're like, here it is. Like, it was still, like, terrifying, but it was funny because the stuff they put the most oomph on was, like, all the supernatural stuff. Like, the, what was the Peggy doll?
That was creepy.
The Peggy doll was the best one. And it was, like, that was, like, the biggest one for them. I remember when we were sitting outside on the line waiting to go in, a lot of the talk was about the Peggy doll.
That was creepy. I was very hesitant to make eye contact, but I did.
Yeah, I did. I didn't tell you, but like they going in, the woman said like, say hello to it to be nice, but then you got to make sure to say goodbye or whatever. And
did you say goodbye?
I said goodbye like very briefly as I got goodbye, and I kind of like chuckled because it seemed silly to me.
I said hello and goodbye.
I didn't say hello, but also I stared at it for like as long as I could in the eyes.
Ooh, I was like this. I literally like scanned it from the top, and when there was like 3 seconds left, quick eye contact just to like take it in. But I didn't want to linger.
I'm the skeptic, so I'm like almost aggressive in the way that I want shit to happen.
Wow.
But then Ben, like,
I believe
you
it.
kind of respect it. Yeah, I'm like, just come at me. I don't know. I want something to happen.
Let me tell you, the only 2 experiences I had, and like you said, this is coming from a guy who's a believer. I believe in the paranormal. Say what you will about it, but my experience with this was like we went into 33 different rooms, approximately.
Yeah.
You know, they might have had one closed off, but about 33 rooms. And the only 2 that I had any kind of feeling in or any kind of reaction to that was like really noticeable was the second room that we went into, which was the, what would you call it, the doll room?
Yeah.
And it was like all these like ventriloquist dummies and puppets and different dolls. And there was like, I don't know, let's say, you know, 100, 150 dolls in this room. And I went in there, and I don't know if it was because they had built it up or not, or built it up, but I went in, and literally all the hair on my arms stood up. I felt like this almost electric sensation all over my body.
Wow.
And I'm like, this feels weird. Like, this feels unnatural. This feels like a physical force acting upon me. And I know it may sound silly to some of you guys, but like for me, I was like, this is weird. And then I looked over, and there was another lady in the group who was there with me, and Emmett was right behind. And we saw this, I guess you'd call it like a puppet, like a marionette puppet on a swing. And it was not moving when we came in, and when I left, he was rocking back and forth. And that just freaked me the fuck out. You saw it briefly, right?
I did see that, yeah. That did happen.
And then the crazy thing, we left, you know, me, that lady, and you, and the other older guy that was there, we all saw it moving. We looked back, and it wasn't like there was a breeze or anything. As soon as we had left, the puppet had stopped moving. So that weirded me out. And who knows, maybe there could be some kind of trick there. Anything's possible. But it definitely freaked me out, and the way that I felt physically was very unusual. And like I said, all the hair on my arms was standing up, and I just felt like an electricity. That's the only way I can really describe it, like static shock, you know?
Yeah.
And then the only other room that I felt a real odd physical reaction to was that was it Lily, the doll?
Peggy?
Or Peggy.
I think it was Peggy.
I think it's
there was
Peggy.
another doll called Lily.
The one we had to speak to.
Yeah, Peggy was the one.
And that was the one, maybe because they had a talk box going in the background, but that was one as soon as I actually saw it with my own eyes, same sensation. The hair standing up on the arms, the electric feeling, and then I would say it passed after like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
So those are the only 2 rooms I had like a physical reaction to. The rest of them were just uncomfortable, like the murder stuff, the Ed Gein stuff, the the Charles Manson stuff. It was more interesting, but it was a little uncomfortable. You don't want to sleep in those rooms, obviously.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the same physical, immediate reaction that I had with those doll rooms. So those are only 2 things I felt anything in. I don't know if you felt anything.
The one thing that intrigued me the most, and I wish I kind of knew more about, was that pianist woman towards the end.
Yeah.
Who said she was having trouble with demons trying to get at her via technology.
Ooh.
Remember her?
That was
yeah,
a weird
yeah.
one.
That was an interesting
I could
one.
tell you were a little uncomfortable in that room.
I was a little because
I could tell because you kept kind of doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you kind of seemed off in that room because we were in there for a good, let's say, 5 minutes.
That one seemed like really genuine to me for some reason. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, you seemed a little uncomfortable in there. Yeah.
That one was more like there was definitely a degree of like I don't know. They built up a lot of the other ones, but that one for some reason seemed very matter of fact to me.
I could
And
tell
that's
it
what
bothered
freaked
you,
out
yeah.
about it. Yeah.
And they also
And,
had her last Polaroid she took before she died.
Yeah, there was a series
We're
of
talking-
Polaroids
it was
that
like
were
the
kinda
night- it
chilling.
was like the night she passed away.
And this one to me was very interesting because, I mean, like as a skeptic, a lot of people, anyone who goes out looking for something like this, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I buy it because like that's what they wanted. But this woman, like reading her story on the little blurbs, she was literally just like a fairly successful classical pianist, and there were pictures of her, you know, playing and hanging out with her family, and she's just like totally normal.
Yeah.
And I guess whatever it was, whatever you believe in, whether it was sort of mental decay or, you know, actual demons or whatever you believe in, this sort of, it seemed like it just blindsided her because she was very well adjusted, very successful.
It did look a little odd.
And that's why, like, it just struck me as legit. That was the one that really struck me as legit.
Yeah.
And
the Polaroids really were
the
unsettling.
Polaroids were really scary. Yeah, she would take. It said she had taken selfies of herself to try and record her decline in some way.
Yeah.
And so the first one was like her with makeup and she was smiling, and then the next few were like her like kind of like disheveled and just like almost catatonic.
Yeah.
And then the last one was like very blurry, and then it said like that she had died like hours later.
And the last one was cut. The very last one, it was like 1 out of 5 was cut in half.
Cut in half, yeah.
And you could literally just see like her shoulder and like her chest and like hair, and that was it.
Yeah, it was scary.
Yeah.
And then the creepiest part that I wanted to sort of understand what her perception of all this was they had recreated her whole living room.
Yeah.
Because she said that, you know, she was getting attacked via technology.
Dude, that
so
was crazy.
Yeah, they had like her living room with her TV and her radio. And then what was really interesting to me is they had, you know, in the movies how sometimes someone who's like trying to figure out a mystery will put all these pieces of information on like a cork board and then connect them with a string.
Very Zodiac.
She had done like literally that, and I was trying to read all her notes. Like she literally had notes on a cork board, and then she had strings connecting them.
What's
and all
crazy
that
to
stuff.
think is those are probably the real notes.
Yeah, no, I think they were.
Zak Bagans was very adamant about those all being authentic.
Yeah, yeah. It looked like they looked like very old pieces of paper. They looked like very old writing on the paper, and it looked like someone's like kind of shitty cursive. And I had trouble reading it, but from what I could read, it was like a lot of Bible verses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So she was getting heavy. I think what she was trying to do was like ward it off.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know, that one to me just seemed like very, very legitimate because from all the pictures in her backstory, she just seemed like a very well-adjusted, normal person, and then all of a sudden, like, this, like, fucking hit her out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's what freaked me out about it.
That makes it scary because it's like...
That makes it scary,
literally out of the blue.
Yeah.
Like,
and it seemed like she was trying to save herself all that stuff because she was, like, looking into the Bible and, like, how do I ward off these demons?
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know. Again, whatever you think, like, the actual issue was is almost irrelevant. It's just kind of, like, it's scary to see this descent of this, like, well-adjusted person so quickly, so rapidly. And so like out of
and the fact
nowhere.
that they legitimately died.
Yeah.
And she was like 38 or 40. Like, not very old, you know.
That one stood out to me for sure. Yeah.
There were quite a few where I found myself feeling a little dizzy. I didn't say anything, but there were a few like Ed Gein's room. I felt a little dizzy. I wasn't scared. I went in with almost like this kind of weird like history lesson appreciation, almost like when you watch like, you know, the first 48 or fucking shows like that are like very morbid. I was like, okay, this sucks. It's creepy, but it's fascinating in a kind of historical sense, which is kind of morbid. But like, you know, I kind of went in with like that, you know, educate me perspective.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I was in there and like there was something about it where it's like you look at that skin torso that he had, and you look at the cauldron that he boiled how many people in.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, okay, it kind of turns my stomach a bit, and it also made me feel a little unbalanced. Yeah. Also, right when we went into the area with Manson's ashes and Richard Ramirez's clothing, that was an area where it felt almost like the floor was uneven, and I felt a little dizzy. And I didn't say anything to anyone because I didn't want to look like, oh, he's constantly feeling something, he's lying.
Right.
But that was something that I felt. I was like, this feels a little uncomfortable because there were so many murder weapons, there were so many weird things there, and that felt uncomfortable to me. That middle room with the doll, the Lily the doll, I didn't really feel anything in there.
I remember them mentioning her name, but I remember the room.
Yeah, but both the dolls and the severed head kind of creeped me out, but more so, not to be a huge spoiler if you guys want to check this out, I won't mention every single exhibit, but there were a few things that had a more distinct feeling than others, especially those dolls. Those dolls were, and I'm not even like necessarily like scared of dolls. You know how people are like, oh, I'm so scared of clowns. Like I'm not like that, But it was just one of those things. It's like I went into these rooms and I had a noticeable reaction physically where I was like, okay, something feels a little off. You know?
Yeah.
And then definitely the Ed Gein room and the Manson area. And then there were a few others. There was a clown section that was kind of bizarre, but that was more like a jump scare area.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
But there's a few other things at the end that I'm not going to give away out of respect to Zach and their, the museum staff, because who knows, you guys might want to check it out. And if you do, I highly recommend it. Like this.
Yeah,
this,
it was cool.
This for me is
Yeah.
a 10 out of 10 in kind of a weird sense. Like it's like, don't take your kids to it. Don't take anyone who's like faint of heart, because there are a couple jump scares. But if you're into the paranormal, 110% check it out. Like it's very cool. Like,
Yeah.
But if you're
Yeah.
if someone's in your friends or family is like ultra religious, I would say skip it because it might fuck with their head. Or people who just can't handle that kind of stuff, like maybe avoid it. But if you got a healthy skeptic, or if you have a little bit of an interest in the paranormal and crime history, go check it out for sure. Because for me, it was really, really cool. And I've been a fan of Zach and a fan of Aaron and a fan of Ghost Adventures since the get-go. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, yeah, I totally agree. It was, and even if, like, even for someone like me, it was super, super interesting because a lot of it was just, like, concrete things that had happened. And there was, like, here are the important objects from this case.
Yeah.
And it was very cool and very surreal to look at them. Again, it was, like, it's one of those things, it's almost like watching, like, there's certain movies you watch where, like, while you're watching it, you don't think much of it, and then when you walk away, you're like, wait, shit.
Yeah.
And, like, that was kind of the sense I got with this.
Yeah.
It's like, again, like, looking at all these, like, basically, like, pieces of dead people.
We
and
literally
murder
saw.
weapons.
We literally saw like pieces of people.
Yeah.
We literally saw like murder weapons.
Yeah.
Like tons of them. Tons of them.
The other one I do want to mention that really that made me unsettled, and I mentioned to you, was like it was effective because it sort of recreated the experience. Was the death van guy,
Ooh,
the death doctor, who
Dr.
I guess,
Kevorkian.
yeah, Dr. Kevorkian, who in the 70s or the 80s would drive around in this van and
he would help people with assisted suicide.
He would assist their suicide by
so literally people
injecting them with
say they would
whatever.
have ALS, or they would have cancer, or they would have fill in the blank on a terminal illness that they don't want to live with. He would help them commit suicide.
He would have them lay down in his little van,
Yeah.
and then he'd just inject them.
And he did upwards of 150 to 200 different people, and we stood inches away from his van.
Yeah, and he would play. He was a composer, and he would play this like soothing flute piece that he had written while these people died, I guess. And so, like, you walk into this room with the whole van and sort of a recreation with a dummy of like what it would look like.
But it was
while
his
they died.
actual van.
Yeah, and they would play his flute piece in the background, and that one really kind of freaked me out because. For me as a musician, like when you put the music on it, and because that music was really from him, and that really was the music that they were listening to as they were dying, that made it close. That made it feel close.
So we're talking dozens to upwards of 100 plus people died listening to that music.
Yeah, right.
And we were right there where it happened. And my thing is Kevorkian, it's like those people all wanted to die. That's the weird thing. So
yeah,
it's
there are quotes that lined the wall of like people who had been like, "Yes, this is what I want."
Yeah. So it's almost like it wasn't
really
like
weird,
he was the equivalent of like Ed Gein or any of those freaks that were.
It's obviously still
murderers.
illegal, but
It was bad. But the odd thing was that the victims came to him, and he literally thought he was helping.
And that almost gave it like a Heaven's Gate cult vibe.
Yeah,
that's what I think. That's what chilled me. The cults have always interested me.
Yes,
because it's like feeling good about that stuff is almost more terrifying than like having a proper response and being scared of death.
Yeah,
and that's what really freaked me out in that room because it was very like ethereal, pretty flute music.
Yeah.
And then it was all these quotes of these people like, "Yes, I'm ready to die. I can't wait." And I was like, "Whoa!"
And what's so weird about that to me is like, out of everyone in the entire museum, that's the only case that we know of where the people were like, "Take me."
True. Yeah. Very.
So
true.
it was literally consensual.
Death.
Murder. Death, yeah.
Murder,
So I get Kevorkian. I don't necessarily agree with him, but at the same time, if someone was really suffering that much, and he put them out of their misery, I don't think he was necessarily a bad guy. I think he
believed in what he was doing.
I think he was disconnected in terms of like feeling, but at the same time, those people all wanted to go. So I don't think he was necessarily a bad guy.
I don't know if he had any morals, but there were. Like some of the quotes, these people were like, "I have cancer, I'm about to die anyway. I'd rather go like this," and that I can understand.
I respect it.
I don't know if like some guy was just like, "I'm really depressed, please kill me," and he's like, "All right," like like.
Did we see that though?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know much about him.
Everything that I saw was that he was a doctor, And I don't know, I could be wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people who know a whole lot more about it than I do. But just from the little scope that I have on it, it seemed like it was like people with ALS, people with cancer, people with what's the other one? Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Things like that. Or no, not Parkinson's. Alzheimer's. People who didn't want to, deteriorate, so they were just like, hey, put me out of my misery, and he was obliged to do it. So if that were the case exclusively, I get where he's coming from.
And I also I really am interested to know if, because there's like that statistic that I think based on like guns jamming and just suicide attempts that failed, there's a statistic that like 90% of people that committed suicide regretted it. So I don't know, like in his van, I wonder if people are like, "Wait, fuck, no, stop, I take it back." I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like if it depends on how far down the road you are. If you have a terminal illness, you know, and who knows everyone's thresholds of pain and things like that. But I do think, at least from what the small bit that I've heard about Kevorkian, I think he truly believed in it, and it seemed like the people were very willing.
Right.
So I mean, that's why he got out of prison in 8 years, and he wasn't there for life.
Yeah, true. Yeah, he got like second-degree murder.
He was on the cover of Time magazine. But so was that one bomber a few years ago. So what the fuck does Time know?
Yeah, true.
Or was he on Rolling Stone?
And now Biden's on the cover of Time magazine. So
yeah, and he's notorious for
he's in good company.
He's notorious for killing people in his Volkswagen.
Yeah, that's right.
Just with his speeches, they bore him to death.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a very cool experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I would 100% do it again, and if you guys are in the Las Vegas area, totally check it out. If you're into ghost adventures, if you're into the macabre, if you're into any crime stuff, it's 2 hours out of your trip. I would say plan for 2.5 because there was a big line.
Yeah, and if you're big into like spooky shit, definitely get the RIP pass.
Yes, because the RIP pass gave us, I would say, a quarter more content. We got to go into the basement. We got to go into a torture chamber, a legit torture chamber.
The doll thing was the VIP.
The doll thing. We got to go into a few other things that I'm not going to give away because I don't want to spoil the illusion if you guys go. But there's definitely 4 or 5 more things that you get to go into, if not maybe a couple more, that are totally worth it and totally spooky.
There was that one room that was straight up like not even really horrific at all. It was just like cool history.
Yeah.
Was Wyatt Earp's Bible and
I love
Jesse James's revolver. Like that shit was sick.
One of my favorite rooms.
Yeah,
and they also had Bonnie and Clyde memorabilia.
They
had their tackle box,
gear.
Fishing gear. Jesse James' revolver, like with his own carvings in the handle.
Yeah, that was sick as fuck.
And then they had these old school animatronics of who was it, Wyatt Earp and somebody else. Like playing poker. Like it was so cool, man. So if you guys get the chance, 110% check it out. Not a bad thing I can say about it. The only thing is if you have someone who like has a weak heart, or like kids that are really frightened of things, or people who are very, very superstitious,
or religious,
or religious people might be a bit turned off by some of the stuff. And
there were some scenes that had like church imagery juxtaposed with like death.
And there's a hard bit of satanic lore mixed in there. So those people, who you think might be sensitive to it, definitely a no-no for them. But you guys who have like a healthy interest in it and a respect for the paranormal and for crime, like go check it out because it's super cool. A cool way to spend your time in Vegas, and it's totally different than getting hammered or gambling, which we fucking love. But at the same time, it really breaks up the trip and adds something unique to the mix. It
was a breath of fresh air, and it was totally cool. And then when we came back from it, I was totally ready to like keep partying again.
Exactly,
which we're about to go do right after this.
Yeah, so we're a couple drinks deep, more than a couple. Let's be honest. But we're gonna get some food, and then we're gonna hit the strip. But I just wanted to share this experience with you guys, and we love you. And if you get the chance, check out Zak Bagans Museum in Las Vegas.
Very cool.
All right, remain unfazed. We'll be back.